Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here. Today, we're digging deep into the fascinating psychological undercurrents of English grammar. We're going to look at the exact language structures we use to express total control over our choices and, on the flip side, complete surrender to our emotions. It's kind of like the grammar of preference versus the grammar of powerlessness. Trust me, mastering this is a real game changer for how you speak.
So picture this, you're in a situation where you have to make a really tough choice. Maybe you chose to stay in instead of going out to a crowded party, and you needed to firmly set that boundary. Now compare that with a moment where you just completely lost control of reaction. Like someone told a joke so funny you literally burst out laughing in a dead silent room. How do you actually articulate those two extremes with absolute precision? Well, that's exactly what we're solving today.
All right, let's just dive right in. To guarantee we're getting precise native-level accuracy, we are pulling our formulas straight from today's curriculum document. We're going to master two main structures here. Would rather, which is all about preference and choice, and can't help, which dictates our absolute inability to stop a feeling or a reaction. Here's our quick roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll master would rather, then we'll move on to expressing past regrets, followed by the can't help reaction. After that, we'll bulletproof your grammar by looking at some common mistakes to avoid, and finally, we'll wrap up with some advanced idioms and vocabulary. Let's get to it.
All right, Section 1, Mastering Would Rather. We are starting right off with the grammar of taking control and making active choices.
Let's look at the textbook definition from our source text. Would rather literally means to prefer, to choose one thing over another, or, to like one option more than another. When you use this structure, you're essentially acting as the architect of your own reality. It is the ultimate tool in the English language for asserting your personal preference and laying down clear boundaries.
It's actually fascinating how mathematical English can be sometimes. Think of this like a simple equation. For an affirmative choice, your formula is the subject plus would rather plus the verb in its first form. Easy, right? But what if you want to express a negative preference? You simply drop the word not right before that verb. So the whole shebang becomes subject plus would rather not plus the first form of the verb. The absolutely crucial thing to remember here, the constant variable, is that the verb stays in its base, first form. Let's actually see this formula in action. I would rather stay home. Notice the first form of the verb there, stay. Or she would rather study. Again, study is in the first form. And for setting a negative boundary, they would rather not wait. These sentences are crisp, they're clear, and they confidently express present-day decisions.
Moving right along to Section 2, expressing past regrets. Because let's be honest, we've all made a choice we later wished we could undo, right? To express that kind of regret, the formula actually has to physically change to reflect a shift in time. Take a look at the comparison here. Our present choice uses the first form of the verb, but to time travel to the past and discuss a better choice you didn't make, we have to inject the word have and shift the main verb into the third form. So the formula becomes subject plus would rather have plus verb in the third form. This structural shift is exactly what signals to the listener that you're reflecting on history. Let's look at these little micro stories of reflection from our source. I would rather have taken the bus. See? Taken is our third form verb. She would rather have studied harder. And then there's the negative version, expressing that deep, sinking wish to take back your own words. I would rather not have said that. Adding have and that third form verb just perfectly captures that very human feeling of wishing you'd done things differently. Okay, Section 3, the can't help reaction. We are pivoting completely now, moving away from taking control and entirely surrendering to our feelings. This structure is all about can't help. Our source defines this as cannot stop yourself from doing something, basically being unable to control a reaction, a feeling, or an action. Think of this as the grammar of pure instinct. It's totally grounded in the psychological experience of having an automatic, uncontrollable response to something happening around you. Now pay close attention, because this is absolutely crucial. Our source text literally labels this the golden rule. After can't help, you must always use a verb ending in ing. You really need to lock this specific structural pattern into your memory. It is completely non-negotiable. And just like we did with would rather, we can shift this involuntary reaction into the past. But notice how much simpler it is this time. To go from a present reaction to a past reaction, all you do is change can't to couldn't. That's it. The ing verb remains totally constant. Subject plus couldn't help plus verb ending in ing. These examples really paint a vivid picture because they show the immediate cause and the totally inevitable surrendered effect. The joke was funny. I couldn't help laughing. The reaction just happened automatically. The movie was sad. She couldn't help crying. The baby was cute. They couldn't help smiling. An external force acts upon you, and your ing reaction is simply unavoidable. Moving on to Section 4, avoiding common mistakes. Because, hey, even the most advanced learners fall into certain traps with these specific formulas. This is exactly why we rely heavily on our source documents. There's a dedicated section here pointing out the wrong sentences versus the correct ones. These are the specific, frequent errors that trip people up all the time, and we're going to break them down right now so you literally never make them. First up, let's look at this sneaky trap. The wrong sentence is, I would rather went. The correct sentence is, I would rather go. So why is went incorrect? Well, because went is a past tense verb. And if you recall that mathematical formula from earlier, present choices with would rather strictly demand the first form of the verb. Go is the first form. Mixing past tense verbs with would rather just completely breaks the formula. And here's the second major trap. Wrong, she couldn't help cry. Correct, she couldn't help crying. Remember that golden rule we emphasized a minute ago? If you don't use the ing form after the phrase can't help, the sentence just falls apart. It must always, for sure, be crying, laughing, smiling, and the list goes on. All right, Section 5, Advanced Idioms and Vocabulary. Now that your underlying grammar is mathematically perfect, it's time to upgrade your vocabulary to give you that extra edge. Let's look at some idioms straight from our source material to give you that native level flair. These are fantastic. Think about how perfectly the phrase let off steam ties into our theme of uncontrollable feelings today. If you can't help but feel angry, you might need to go for a walk to let off steam, meaning to release that pent-up stress. Or if someone acts unfairly or cruelly, you'd say that comment really hit below the belt. And finally, we have these 5 incredibly powerful vocabulary words. Look at the word evoke, meaning to bring a feeling or memory to mind. I mean, that is exactly what happens right before a can't help reaction. A sad movie evokes sadness, and you just can't help crying. Or consider dauntless, fearless, and determined. That is exactly the mindset you want when you confidently use would rather to assert your own choices. To wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this thought. Utilizing a couple of our new terms. Off the record, mastering these structures really will make your English truly impeccable. You now hold the grammatical keys to asserting your firm preferences and surrendering to your most genuine emotions. So, my question to you is this. What powerful emotions will you evoke, and what dauntless choices will you make the very next time you speak? Keep practicing, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.